I posted a video this morning. There's one that's been downloading for hours. And, right? So, mosquitoes are pretty bad. But this is my condiment book. This is a book where I take, if I find recipes, well, it's called Condiments, etc. So, as you can see, I've used it. I've got to redo this book. People have borrowed it. And sometimes I'm not the easiest on things. But this is I'm going to run 2 recipes by you. And Gathering Basket Homestead, I'm pretty sure that you can answer one of my questions on the second recipe. But this one here that I'm going to read is very short. My grandfather used to work as a lumberjack years ago, back when he was quite young, and he's been gone for quite some time now. But this is a recipe that he had written down, and this is written exactly, I wrote it down exactly the way it was written in his handwriting. Now, it also had a date of 1866, so I'm not sure if that was the recipe era or not. I'm not sure. But it also says 1866 yeast. So this is the recipe that he had written down. It is boil 1 pound of flour, 1/4 pound of brown sugar, a little salt, and 2 gallons of water. Boil for 1 hour. Remove from heat while still warm. Cork up in a bottle, and it's ready to use in 24 hours. It says, as a note down below, 1 pint of yeast will make 18 pounds of bread. So I thought that was interesting, and when I came across that the other day, because I got in this condiment book, I thought I would share that with y'all, with Gathering Basket Homestead in mind. So the other recipe here, it's a little bit longer, and I had written it down, and I do not know where I got this recipe. No idea, but I wrote it down exactly as it was written. So mosquitoes are lively. I haven't taken my shower yet, nothing, folks. It's been a very busy day. So the recipe is called Wild Yeast, and I'm pretty sure it's going to sound very familiar, or quite familiar, to Gathering Basket Homestead. I really should put some fly dope on. Here's the recipe written down as I read it. In a wide mouth quart canning jar, add 1 cup flour, 1/2 cup water. Stir until a thick paste forms. Place lid on jar and put in an area which stays 65 to 70 degrees. Between 24 and 48 hours, small bubbles will be seen. Discard all but 1/2 cup of paste. To this paste, add 1 cup of flour and 1/2 cup of water. Stir. Place lid on and put back to the 65 to 70 degree spot. Fermentation speed will depend on 1, steady temperature, 2, flour type, and 3, how hungry your starter is. It says, remember, starter is alive, and like some people and live things, some need more food than others. If you have a hungry starter, you may have to feed 2 times a day. Another way to determine if the feed, and it's in quotes, your starter has eaten up your last flour feeding, If the starter starts sinking or liquid forms, it's hungry. If you are making a starter, when it's hot and humid, the feedings may need to be done 7 to 10 hours apart. Whoops, the page just fell out. For each feeding, you discard all but a half a cup of starter, add 1 cup of flour, half a cup of water, mix, cover, place in 65 to 70 degree spot. If too much liquid forms, pour it off. A little is okay, too much, and starter will become too strong. Feed starter only when it's hungry. Do not overfeed. It's better to underfeed than to overfeed. No two starters are alike. Just like all living things, some are zoomers and some are lazy. It is best to feed on a routine and not when it looks hungry. If it does not pour out of the jar during feeding, it's not done eating. Be patient. By day 4, you should start to see the starter rising and falling. If it hasn't fallen, and it's in quote, or sunk in quotes, skip feeding for this round. It's better to underfeed than to overfeed. By day 5, feed 2 times a day, once in the morning and once at night. Remember, each feeding you discard all but a half a cup, add 1 cup of flour, half a cup of water, stir, cover, and place in 65 to 70 degree spot. Day 6, I'm almost done. Day 6, discard all but a third cup, add 1 cup of flour, half a cup of lukewarm water, cover 65 to 70 degrees. And I'm assuming back in that spot. Day 7, float test. Take a small spoon from the top of the starter, do not stir, and drop starter into water. If the starter floats, the starter is now ready to use. If it doesn't, continue on the day 6 regimen. If for any reason you need to pause the routine, place into fridge and resume when you can. It may just need a growth break. It's been working hard for 7 days and it needs a rest. The starter removed from the jar on day 6 can be used to make bread or to start another batch of starter. If not making bread for a while, place in fridge and feed once a week. Liquid will form in the jar. Just stir the liquid in when adding 1 cup of flour, half a cup of water. Stir, lid, and put back in the fridge. Now it says here that 1 cup of starter equals 1 packet of yeast. Underneath this, and I know I'm overthinking it. I do know I'm overthinking it. It says, reduce recipe flour by half a cup. Reduce recipe water by 3/4 of a cup. My question is, if you have a recipe that calls for 4 cups of flour, I'm assuming you omit half a cup of that flour and you omit 3/4 cup of that water in the original recipe when you are using this starter, this yeast starter. Now, like I said, I know I'm overthinking it and I'm second guessing myself. So does that sound about right? If it does, let me know. If it doesn't, let me know. Gathering Basket Homestead, I've watched enough of your videos. And you called your starter another name. So pool something, right? I do watch them. I'm not very good at remembering. So it'd be great if you could let me know. I'd kind of like to use my own starter. I would. So the mosquitoes are horrible. This is going to be the end of the video. I started cutting up the logs those 3 trees, and I ran out of gas in the chainsaw, and I ran out of gas in me. So I'll work on that tomorrow morning and get the rest of that bucked up, get it split, and get it stacked. Mine is going toward next year's firewood, and my stepdad is going to take his up after we split it. And he says the cherry, if it's split, is going to be good enough to burn, plenty enough time this season to burn. Well, that's going to depend on if he covers his wood pile, right? Which is not covered. And if we don't get a lot of rain or humidity, he doesn't have the best spot up there to put his wood piles. He had it out here one year, but he has decided that he wants it closer to his house. He lives more in the woods. I'm quite open here. I get a lot more sun and I get a lot more wind down here. So we'll see what he decides to do. But I've got to get out of these mosquitoes, folks.